Well, good morning. I'm really excited to be able to join with you for our very first episode of Make Your Mark in the weekly teachings. And so I'm really excited to be able to share with you some of the things that I have on my heart to share. And I know that as a result of you listening and potentially hopefully putting into practice some of the things that we're going to talk about, you're going to be able to create amazing momentum, and you're going to understand the importance of momentum, and you're going to know what is stopping you from getting the momentum that you need in your business. Okay, so today is going to be an exciting day. I want you to prepare your minds, prepare your heart to receive, and prepare yourself to be an overcomer as we start talking about some of the obstacles that are in your way and how you're going to get over those obstacles, because you can do this. You can totally do this. The great thing is that all of it is completely within your ability to master. And so as we go through today's training, just be ready, be encouraged, be excited, be attentive, because this is your destiny. This is your future. It's so worth feeding into, right? And so giving yourself the gift of having undistracted time right now will help you to get to the place that you need to be, to make the changes that you need to make. So I'm really excited that this is my first chance to connect with some of you who are outside of my team, some of you who are even outside of doTERRA. And so I'm really excited to be able to share with you some of the very principles that got me to where I am and that helped me to coach my team members to where they are. And so let's start with just, first of all, understanding the importance of mindset. And as an entrepreneur, I know that you probably already have had this shift in your spirit. You've noticed that you need to make a shift in your energy level, because when you're an entrepreneur, you are not an employee, right? You need to develop a whole different mindset. If you're still thinking like an employee, what's going to happen is you are still going to be thinking about, potentially you have a mentor call coming up with your coach or your upline leader, and you're starting to think, oh my goodness, well, I'm afraid of this because I haven't done this, that, or the other thing, and I better do something to look like I'm active. That is not an entrepreneur mindset. That's an employee mindset. We don't want that. That's not going to get us success. Okay, so the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur, I like to liken to the difference between being a babysitter and being a mom or being a parent, right? So when you're a babysitter, you have this mindset like, yeah, I'll do my stuff, but I don't ultimately take responsibility for this thing. I get to leave at some point and somebody else has the baby. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're the mom, you're the dad, you're the parent who then has this lifetime commitment to raising and seeing this child thrive and prosper and do something very, very special with their lives. And the mindset that you need to be a parent is so different than the mindset of a babysitter. And so when you're becoming an entrepreneur, you need to develop that entrepreneur mindset, that mindset of a parent, that what you've just created with your business is not temporary. It is something that you are committed to and that you're going to put your full energy into growing. And so a parent, to get into parent mode, or I would even say for those of us who are women who are moms, who've gone through the birthing process, you know the intentionality that's required to birth something. And so to get into birthing mode requires an entirely different level of activity than just being in, coast mode or employee mode, okay? It's a very elevated level of activity. So what happens, and one of the failings of people when they start a business, whether it's a business, it's not as likely to happen when you're starting a practice, or when you're starting like a practice being like a health practitioner who's opening like a chiropractic office, for example, or somebody who's opening up a restaurant. They don't have this tendency to think this way, but it often happens with people who have a direct sales type business, that they get into this thinking that they can have life as usual, and then they just add a direct sales business on top of it. So they're just going to still have their normal life as always, and then they're just going to add a business on top of it. Well, that works just about as well as thinking that you're going to have life as usual and then adding a newborn baby on top of it. Life is not as usual. Everything turns upside down when you have a child, right? So the sacrifices that you have to make, the changes to your schedule, and even basic things like having, a bath becomes a big deal, right? Because we know how much time and energy goes into into taking care of a newborn. It's the same thing when you're starting a business. If you have a mindset that you're just going to have life as usual and add a business on top of it, you're going to fail. You have to realize that you have to rework your entire schedule. You have to say no to a lot of the things that you were saying yes to before. You're going to have to go through a period of time when maybe, your friends are off doing something, or you really want to be part of this gathering and you can't do it because you are building something, you are birthing something, you are raising something. And this something is going to be massive, and it's going to be so impactful for the many people who are going to be touched by what you're creating, but you can't do it with life as usual. One of the things that I see that leads people to failure, especially in direct sales businesses, is when I talk to people, they're like, well, I'm busy, I'm really trying to do my calls. I'm really trying to, get my contacts in. I'm trying to do my follow-ups. I'm trying to do my customer service, but I've got this birthday party that I'm planning, and I've got this over here that I'm involved in, and I've got that over there, and I've got that over there. And I'm like, why? Why do you still have all of those commitments happening? Maybe birthday this year has to look so much simpler. Maybe you just go out for dinner instead of planning this elaborate birthday party, because you're birthing something, you're building something, and it requires a redirection of your activity. It requires a redirection of your mindset. And it doesn't mean that your family has to suffer. It does mean that they do have to make sacrifices along with you, because you're building this thing together, right? It's a thing that you're building together. So you have to be able to make space for what you're creating. Okay, so remember, when you're talking about being an entrepreneur, what is the definition of an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is someone who is willing to do today what others won't, so that they can have tomorrow what others can't. So there are a lot of people who want to start a direct sales business, who want to start their own business, who want to be their own boss. There's lots of people like that. And in fact, people who want to join me in my business, I see it all the time. They get really excited about the concept of building. That's what we call people in my business who want to create a business like what I have. It's called a builder, right? But lots of people want to be a builder if that definition of builder means that they earn money. So basically what they're saying is, when they say, I want to build, what they're saying is, I want to earn money. I want to create income. I want to have the kind of income that you have. But what if we said to them, do you want to, give up this? Do you want to sacrifice that? Do you want to put in longer hours than you ever thought that you would have to work in a day because you're creating something for your future? Do you want to do that? Because that's actually what you're committing to when you say that you want to build. Okay. Again, it's not life as usual. And so you're willing to do today what others won't, so that you can have tomorrow what others can't. And so, yes, now today I enjoy an incredible life. I'm really grateful that outside my door right now is a team of gardeners working on my garden for me. And it feels so amazing to not have to do all the back-breaking work myself. I still do my vegetable garden, but they're taking care of all of the other gardens. That costs something. I can afford it, and I'm grateful for that. But that's because I put in many years of back-breaking work myself to get to the place where I am right now. So just understand that you need to do things a little differently. I want to tell you an example or a story, because I think that this will highlight really well this concept called momentum. Okay, so when we're talking about momentum, this to me stands out as kind of like the quintessential momentum story. So there was a time about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, when my daughter was staying at a friend's house. And I think it was springtime, and we were going to pick her up from her friend's house. And there was myself, my husband, and my other daughter, and my little son, and we're in the car, and we're going to pick up my daughter. And this friend's house that she was at had this really long driveway, and it was spring, so it was really, really muddy, and it wasn't gravel, it was kind of just mud. So we made it to the end of that long muddy driveway, and my daughter Carissa got out of the house, her friend's house. She got into the car, and then we started to drive away, only to find out that we could not go anywhere. We were stuck. And if you know what it's like to be stuck in the mud, you know that it's useless to just put it on the gas at that point, because you're just going to get yourself more and more stuck, and potentially, dig yourself even deeper into the hole that you really don't want to be in. And so we knew what we had to do. We knew that it was going to require people getting out of the car and starting to push the car out of the mud. Failing having someone pull you out with a tow, which we didn't have, or having maybe chains put on our wheels, which we didn't have. We knew we needed to push, and so I was not going to step outside of that car because I had my teaks on, and if you know what teaks are, they're very expensive flats, and I was not going to get them dirty in the mud. So I volunteered to be the one at the wheel, while my husband and my two daughters got out and they did the pushing. So it kind of looked like this for a while, which is that they would be behind the car pushing, and then just when we were about to move forward, I would hit the gas. But then I could tell we weren't going to get out of that, and we were about to roll back. So then I would release my foot from the gas pedal, and we would go back again. And then they would push again, and then I would push on the gas again. And we continued to do this for what seemed like an eternity, going back and forth and back and forth, and me pushing on the gas and releasing it just at the right time, and them pushing the car forward and then getting ready to push again, and at any point during that process, if one of them would have said, you know what, I'm getting tired, or if I would have got distracted and said, oh, I don't really feel like pushing the gas pedal again, this is useless. At any point, if we would have stopped that process, we would not have got out of the hole. But we did get out. We worked together, and there was that one final push where they were behind and I was pushing on the gas pedal at just the right time, and we got up and over that mud rut that we were in, okay? But like I said, at any time, if we would have let up and we would not have continued that activity, we would still have been stuck in the mud, having to call CAA, having to get some other kind of help, because we needed to go through the process of the eternal back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to get out of the rut that we were in. And that is a picture of momentum. Momentum is something that builds, but it doesn't happen overnight. It requires a continual effort to be put in day after day after day after day of what seems to be, at the time, unproductive and useless work. Right? So yes, you've taught the classes, you've made the contacts, you've made the calls, you've been doing the follow-up, you've been doing the customer service, and you're not seeing it pay off yet. That's because the momentum has not kicked in yet, but it's still working in the background. And so at any point, if you give up and you don't continue that momentum, you'll lose it. And this is the biggest mistake that often people make in their business. They think that they can just get really excited about the business. They can potentially make their contacts. They've got their list of people that they want to call. Maybe if they're doing a direct sales business, they've hosted some workshops or some parties in their home, and they've got some people interested in it. And then life gets busy, and then they get distracted and they stop. And then they think, okay, 2 weeks later, okay, I forgot, I'm still supposed to be building this business. And so I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to contact some more people. And maybe they run into an obstacle because maybe one of their friends is like, you're with that company? I hate that company. And here, read this article and blah, blah, blah. And then they read that and then they stop. And then they get over that. Maybe it takes them another 2 weeks to get over how they were feeling discouraged and whatever. And then they try it again. And they never get into this place where they have the consistent, continual back and forth activity that's required for momentum to build. Instead, they think that they can just, put in a little activity here and then stop, and put a little bit more and then stop. And that will never build a business. That will never build a business. That will never get you out of a rut. Like in that picture of us being in the car, if you've ever tried to prime a pump, you're going to know that you have to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And you know that eventually the water will flow. As long as there's water down there, it will flow. But there's a lot of priming of that pump that requires a lot of effort that does not produce anything right away. But you can't let up, because when you let up, that's when you lose it. Okay, so momentum is absolutely essential. And if you get momentum in your business, it is the best thing that you can do for your business. It'll be your best friend. Creating momentum creates like this snowball effect. So what you go from almost seeming to have no activity to having suddenly all of this activity and all of these people and all of this interest, and this person's contacting you back, and that person suddenly has become interested and wants to host. And so we have all this activity happens But that if you try to trace any one of those things back to, oh yeah, it was because on this day I did that, you won't be able to, because it's a collective effort. It's a collection of a whole lot of things that happen over a whole lot of period of time, which created that momentum. And the fact that you don't let up is what makes the difference. When you let up, then you have to recreate all over again. It is so much better to create and sustain momentum than it is to try to keep rebuilding it over and over and over again. That's going to suck the wind out of your sails. That's going to, eat your lunch. You're not going to be able to be strong and be confident as a leader and as an entrepreneur if you're constantly rebuilding. I'm not saying that there's not a time to rebuild. I'm not saying that things don't happen in your business that require you to rebuild, but it's so much easier when you can just create momentum, sustain momentum, and get to the place where you need to get to. Okay, and you can't let up. You can't let up. That's what I want to make sure that you understand really, really clearly. So momentum is going to be your best friend in this business, but the lack of momentum on the other side will kill your business. It really will. And so good news, if you've let up in the past and if you haven't been consistent, good news, you did that. You chose that, and you can choose something different. You can choose in the future to be the kind of person that has perseverance, that's willing to do today what others won't, so that you can have tomorrow what others can't. You can do this. You can choose it. And we're going to talk a little bit about this because I know that some of you are going to be like, I feel this is in the way. And we're going to talk about that. So 3 things you need for momentum. First of all, you need desire. Right? You have to have your why really clear. In the picture of us going back and forth in that car, it's really clear to me what we needed. We needed to get out of that hole, and I knew why, because I did not want to be stuck in her friend's driveway forever, right? We wanted to get home. It was late. We wanted to go to sleep. There was a strong why. So you have to be really clear on why it is that you're doing what you're doing, because that's going to help to fuel that momentum. You really do need that. What's the second thing you need is you need non-negotiable goals. There cannot be a plan B. If any of you have ever seen the article that was written on me when Steve and I, when we hit Diamond, you can search for it. Just search Kimberley and Steve Milousis, Diamond, doTERRA, and you can read our article. And our article is all about having no plan B. There was a period of my business where I had to make a decision, and I had to say, because I remember clearly waking up and just thinking to myself, well, if I get out now, at least I haven't invested too much time and I haven't invested too much money. So if I get out now, it's not going to be that bad. And then I just had a voice clearly speaking into my head. And it was like, Holy Spirit was saying to me, Kimberley, how did that work for your marriage? And it was like, because Steve and I had many years before recovered our marriage after both of us having a plan B and both of us having to get rid of that plan B. We had to be all into our marriage in order to make it work. There couldn't have been another option. We were either going to make it work or we were going to die. Like there was no other option. And it had to be the same with my business. I had to get rid of my plan B. Like, oh, well, if this doesn't work, at least I can do that. I had to get rid of that. And so for us, it looked like a lot of different things. My husband had to say no to a job, which kind of meant that he was going to be almost indefinitely unemployed rather. And so we then cashed in our RRSPs and we started, living off of that money until we had enough money, because I knew I was going to hit Diamond. And so that gave us the financial support that we needed to get us over the hump to get to the place. But at that point, there was no plan B. We had kind of burned the bridge, so to speak, of him going back to his job. And so we just knew that we had to be all in. So you have to have desire, you have to know your why, you have to have non-negotiable goals. And this is not just a non-negotiable goal kind of overall that I want to be an entrepreneur, but this is a non-negotiable goal every single month. And I see this happen frequently in my business where people will make goals and they'll say, well, this month I want to be this rank, or I want to achieve this level of sales. And then it gets close to month end and they're like, oh, well, I guess it didn't happen. It's like, that cannot be how you view your goals, because if you do that, you set yourself up for failure and you just accept failure as a part of your life. Do you know that you're designed to win? You're designed to succeed, and your brain functions most healthily when it sees a continual pattern of success. And the great news, again, is that it's up to you. You have complete control over whether you succeed or whether you fail. You know, if you think that you're going to fail, then you will. And if you think that you're going to succeed, you will, right? So it's all about what you're thinking and about what you put your mind to. And if you believe that you've made a non-negotiable goal and it's been a realistic goal and you could totally have done it, and it's getting close to month end and you're not at your goal, then that's when you pull out all the stops and you just go full force and you give it everything that you've got. And so on the other side of that, if for some reason you did not hit your goal, something didn't happen, it was not because you gave up. I always tell my team, you know, in our business, we have until 2 a.m. Eastern time to hit rank, because that's midnight Mountain time. And I always say to them, you only decide at 1:59 a.m. whether you're going to hit your rank goal or not. Until then, you're still doing everything possible, right? If you're in a time zone where you can't call up people in BC, because they're 3 hours behind and it's still a realistic time for them, or a reasonable time for them potentially. So that you can do it. You just need to reframe how you're thinking about it. So having non-negotiable goals. And then the third thing is that you need to understand, where does momentum come from? And that is, it comes from a combination. If you're in direct sales, for example, it comes from a combination of your effort plus your team's effort. Okay, so it's your effort plus your team's effort. But here's the thing. You are like a colander. And if you know, like a colander where you strain the spaghetti and you put the spaghetti in and all the water comes out, you're like a colander, and what overflows to your team comes from you. If the colander is just kind of dripping or it's dry, there's nothing coming down, you can't then sit back and expect your team members to create the momentum that you know your business needs. One of the things that always comes out in my mentor calls with my team leaders, and they're like, oh, well, this leader's not doing this, and this leader's not doing that, and this leader's not doing that. And we can talk about that. But one of my first questions to them is like, okay, so how many contacts are you doing? How many people are you attracting to the business? How many follow-ups are you doing? How many cold calls are you doing? How many business networking events are you going to? Because you can't expect to be able to sit back and wait upon your team and then just criticize them for what they're not doing. The moment that your future success depends upon somebody else's actions or lack of actions, that's when you've lost the game. That's when you've lost your perspective, because your ability to grow is unlimited. It's not limited by one person's, not showing up. If you're stuck on that, you need to let go of that person. You need to just release them, and you need to go find somebody else to build with. Because there is absolutely no reason why we cannot continue to grow. There is an virtually unlimited source of potential out there. We just need to tap into it, and we need to be willing to go after it. And the intentionality with which we'll go after it is the intentionality that we're going to see in our team. But let's talk for a little bit, because I know I want to be real. And I know that you probably know that if you're in this place where you know that you need to be creating more momentum, and you get it, you're wanting to take responsibility, you're wanting to move forward, but you're like, I just feel like there's something in the way. That's the blockage. And we want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to overcome that blockage. Okay. And so let me just tell you another story. I tend to have a lot of vehicle stories for whatever reason. But in this story, my daughter, she often flies in different places to do speaking engagements. And so she lives, though, in Ottawa, where it's really cold. So there was this one time when she was flying back from a warm place back to Ottawa, and she went to go get into her vehicle that was parked in the airport parking lot. And she gets into the vehicle, and she's wanting to drive home. It's like really late at night. She's really tired. She just wants to get home. And she's trying to move the vehicle forward. She kind of just quickly cleaned off the ice and the snow, and she goes to move forward, and it won't budge. And she's like, oh my goodness, there's so much ice, so she gets her chisel out there, and she starts chiseling out the first wheel at the front, and then the second wheel at the front. And then she gets back in the car, and she's like, okay, let's try this again. So she goes to move forward, won't budge. And she's like, oh, I'm going to have to do the back wheels as well. So she gets out her little chisel thing that she uses to clean off the ice. She does the back wheels on the one side, the back wheels on the other side. She gets in the vehicle. She tries to move forward again. Again, it will not move. And she's like, oh my goodness, this thing is so stuck. And so she's going out and she's chiseling more away, like digging little craters out from in front of the wheels. And like, it's late, it's cold. She's come back. She doesn't have a proper clothing on. So she's just like done at this point. She gets back in the vehicle, tries once again, and she's like, oh my goodness. And of course, when she does this, she has the presence of mind to open her eyes up and notice that there's a red light on her dashboard. And she's like, what's that red light? And she realizes, oh, she had the emergency brake on. So all of this time and effort, she wasn't moving forward because she had an emergency brake on. And I think it's a very poignant example of what happens when we want to move forward and we can't, because there's something in our lives that is like an emergency brake, and it's kind of on. And so no matter how much effort we put into moving forward, we find ourselves stuck. So let's talk about that for a bit. And for this, I actually have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to share with you. So let me just bring that up. And this is just as kind of like a very basic, like there's not tons of information on here. So it's not like there's any notes that you're going to necessarily have to make, but I think that the pictures are helpful. So I like pictures. So I'm going to share my screen with you and go here. So what's stopping you is the question, right? So if we know that we need to move forward, and like I said, you're willing to take responsibility, you get all of that, but you're still at this place where you're feeling like you've got like this rock in the road. So you really do want to move forward, but you've just got something blocking you. And so that's obviously something that needs to be dealt with. And, you know, maybe on another occasion, I will tell you of some of my big blockages that I had to work through in order to get to where I am. And that's probably best saved for another time. But I know what it's like to have these big boulders in the road. And it's like, gosh, I really want to get through. But, you know, every time you move forward, you're hitting your head or you're hitting your car against this big boulder. So here's what you need to understand if you don't already, is that this is called the belief expectation cycle. So the belief that you might have developed leads to an action. The action leads to a result, and the result reinforces the belief. Let me give you an example of this. Let's just say, and there's actually like a better version of this, which includes an experience. Between the results and the belief would come the word experience. So let's just say that an experience happens in your past. And I like to use this example because it was a poignant example for me. And that is that I remember when I was young, you know, my dad didn't live with us. And so it really meant a lot to me when he would show up for different events, you know, and there had been some times in the past where he didn't show up, probably because he was in jail, but he didn't show up. And so I guess I was a little bit, you know, skeptical potentially that he was actually going to show up for things. So I remember one time that he told me he was going to take me skating, and I was waiting at this place to go skating, and I was waiting and I was waiting and I was waiting. And he wasn't there. And I was afraid, and I was crying, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's not going to show up again. Well, he ended up showing up. And actually the reason why he was late that particular time wasn't because he was in jail. It was because he actually, there was an accident. And so he was late getting to where I was because there was an accident. But, you know, as a child, it doesn't even matter. You're not even processing that. You're just feeling and experiencing. So my experience in that particular instance led me to the belief that when something's really important for me, the people that I care about won't show up. They just won't be there, which can then lead to an action. So now project this into the future. So now let's just say that I'm at a place in my life where I've just got a promotion at work, and maybe I'm dating. And this isn't actually something that happened, but I'm just making it up. So maybe I'm dating somebody and I get this promotion at work, and they're going to honor me at a banquet, right, for this promotion. And so I'm dating this guy, and I say to him, hey, yeah, there's this banquet happening tonight. You know, they're giving me an award, but it's no big deal. You don't have to come if you don't want to, you know. inside you're thinking you really, really want him to be there. This is really important to you. And you're really hoping that he picks up on that. But you don't say that and you don't express that because you're afraid, the back of your mind, of being disappointed. And so you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, if I put my hopes out there, I could be really devastated. So I'm just not going to get my hopes up. But what signals you're actually giving him with your words and your actions are that this is not important. I don't really care if you show up. And maybe on his end, he's actually dealing with rejection. And he's thinking on his side, because of his own belief cycle, that people don't really want him to be around. You know, that maybe they're embarrassed of him or something. Maybe he's got his own stuff happening. And so sure enough, he doesn't show up. And so then on your side, the result is that he doesn't show up, which is, you know, leads to this experience, this feeling where, oh my goodness, look, that's just reinforcing what I already knew to be true, which is that when something's really important to me, people don't show up. And we don't realize that our belief actually created that event. And I've tried to explain this to my team members in a number of different contexts, and it's so funny to see the thought process people go through, and they're like, no, but it's true. And it's like, it's true because you created it. But if you shift your belief, you can change your reality. You can change what you create. And then what you're going to say as it's true later on is going to be very different. It's going to look very different to what your past has looked like, because this belief expectation cycle can cycle you down, right? It can bring you right down to this place where you just, you know, shut down your heart, you become bitter, you become angry, whatever. But you can't change parts of that. You can't change your experiences of the past. You can't change your actions of the past, but there is one thing you can change, and that is your beliefs. And if you can get a hold of the beliefs, and if you can get a hold of what you're actually believing, that's creating this cycle in your life, and you can rewire your brain to think differently, you are going to experience a very different cycle. It's going to be a cycle that goes up and up and up and up. And I know this to be true because this is my life. You know, for those of you who know anything about me, you're going to know that I come from a background where, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I don't know if rose oil is going to help, but I'm going to just try. There's a lot of construction in the house. Smells great. So my background is that, you know, my dad was an alcoholic and a pimp. You know, my mom was an alcoholic who was abusive. You know, I was put in child safety homes. What are they called? Children's Aid Society. You know, there was sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. There's all kinds of stuff, which leads to a lot of really bad beliefs about yourself. Like really, you know, like I was talking to my son about this yesterday. I said, I feel like my whole life has been trying to rise above people's expectations of me because their expectations were so damn low. You know, it's kind of like, no, I don't like that expectation. I want to rise above that. So I know what it's like to be in this negative cycle, okay? But I also know what it's like to overcome it. And I know that once I got a hold of my beliefs, what I allowed to be playing in my mind as the track, once I got a hold of that, and I was able to change that by founding my beliefs on truths about myself, about God, about others, then I was able to change the trajectory of my life. And I just, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot of rocket science to see the effect in my life compared to what it was before. So it's totally possible. You need to know it's possible. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to encourage you with. But what are some of the possible reasons why you might be experiencing these blockages, and what are some of the negative thought patterns? Well, potentially you're unsure. And this could come from any number of sources. You could be, you know, like, for example, if you started a direct sales business, maybe you're unsure about the products that you're selling. Maybe you're skeptical about the products that you're selling. Maybe you're thinking, well, what if these things are made in China and there's slave houses that make them? Or what if these things are overpriced? Or what if these oils, for example, in my business don't work? Or you may have questions and concerns. But maybe it's not even about that. Maybe you're just unsure that you want it, right? Like maybe you hear me talk about the sacrifices and you're like, I don't know if I want that. I know that there was points in my business, for example, when I had to sacrifice so much, like when I did Diamond Club or whatever. And yeah, I hit rank after rank after rank after rank. And then I hit Diamond, and I was securely at Diamond. And then I wanted to move forward to Blue Diamond, and I had such a struggle. And part of it is because at the back of my mind, I was unsure that I really wanted it, because I wasn't sure that I wanted to go through that kind of struggle again to get to the next level. And the thing is that happens is that even though you could say, yes, we're going to do this, and yes, I have the goal, if you have a track playing back at the back of your mind that's like, really, do you really want that? Do you still, if you're kind of polarized in your mind and you're double-minded about something, you are not going to be able to move forward, right? You have to have singularity of mind and singularity of purpose, and you have to be really clear that this is what you want, and you need to be clear about why. Because if you have those inklings at the back of your mind, like maybe not, you're going to always be failing, because remember, your brain is designed to protect you, right? You're trying to protect yourself. Your brain is just trying to protect yourself. And so you're going to enter into all kinds of self-sabotaging behaviors, because at some level, you're thinking that it's an unsafe thing to do to move forward. It's an unsafe thing to do to start creating this momentum, because you know what the cost is going to be like. And so your brain is trying to protect you, so you enter into self-sabotaging behaviors. So get really clear, get quiet in your heart, and think honestly, why am I stalling? What am I actually believing? Take the time to journal. And it's okay if you uncover that you've got some of these fears, or you've got some of these, I don't really know if I want this. I felt that way too. I felt that way multiple times in this journey, and multiple times just felt like, I think I was going to stay here forever, because you get a little bit afraid. So it's okay if you're feeling that way, acknowledge it, and just know that you can move beyond it. Okay. It's so important to acknowledge it though. Okay, maybe you have money blocks. I mean, we're going to have to do a whole other talk on this, because this is worthy of a talk in and of itself. But I know that I see this a lot, especially in direct sales businesses, but I've seen it in people who are entrepreneurs and business owners outside of direct sales. They have money issues, right? They don't want to make too much money because they don't think that they deserve it. They have these feelings like, rich people are snobby, or rich people are selfish, and I don't want to be rich, and so at some level, when you've made judgments about other people who have money, you're bound to kind of reap that right now. It's going to bounce back and bite you right now, because now you're in this position potentially of making a lot of money, especially in direct sales business, and how you feel about money is really important. If you're afraid of money, if you have this sense that you don't deserve it, and you're constantly spending it or giving it away to others, or giving your customers too good of a deal because you don't want them to have to pay so much, like all of those are problems. And you need to recognize if you have money blocks. And like I said, I think we're going to do a whole separate session on that in the future. Maybe you don't like MLMs. We are going to address this in a future session for sure, because it is absolutely essential that you get to the place where you can understand that multi-level marketing companies are actually probably the most legitimate, like a good multi-level marketing company, the most legitimate and most effective way to earn income over a long-term, compared to all of the other options. When you compare direct sales business model to virtually every other model, I mean, I just look at my story. I mean, my past is as a tax specialist, right? I spent 20 years in tax. I had a 5-year university program, which was an accelerated program, and I had a master's degree by the end of it. So there's like 25 years right there, a lot of hard work. And I replaced that income in 15 months in a direct sales business. Is that not incredible? Of course it's incredible. And I like to be able to share that with other people, because wow, how awesome it would be for everybody to have the same privilege that I had, right? Sorry, I just messed myself up there. So understanding the power of multi-level marketing is absolutely essential, but you have to deal with your stuff. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a future session, so that you can have answers for some of the concerns and questions that come up. But if you're not liking a direct sales business or MLMs and you're in one, it's going to be hard for you to to do well, because you're going to, again, that's that self-sabotage. So make sure that you have it clear. A good video to watch is Rise of the Entrepreneur by Eric Worre, Worre, Rise of the Entrepreneur. I believe that you can watch the entire thing for free online. It is an amazing explanation of the power of direct sales. So take a look at that. You don't have time. Wow, we talked about this, about having to make time, right? Because it's so critical to not try to just fit in the same old schedule with your new business. But let me just put this to email. So one of the things that we understand with time is that time is very much a commodity like money. And I remember many years ago, you know, I learned this principle that I had so many people around me, because Steve and I are pretty frugal with our money. We had so many people asking to borrow money, or, you know, or saying, oh, I just don't have money for that. And I don't have money for this. And then I would look at the things that they would spend money on, and they're like, and I'm like, what? How can you not have money, but you spent money on that? And just to give you an example, I mean, we have a beautiful TV now in our living room. We just remodeled our living room. And I looked at Steve and I said, do you realize that this is the very first TV we've ever purchased? Like, ever. We've been married for like, what, 26 years? And this is the very first TV we've ever purchased, because for the first many years, we just had a TV that was a hand-me-down from his parents. And then that TV broke because it was an old clunker and it was a massive piece of furniture. And then we were given a TV by my son, who was 19 at the time. He bought this like $120 TV to give to us for Christmas because we didn't have a TV, and that's all we ever used. And it was good enough because TV wasn't a big priority for us, frankly. But now we have a beautiful TV. But people are spending, you know, a lot of money on these things, and that they say they have no money, right? So it is just a matter of choice. And so the same thing when it comes to time is, it amazes me, the people who say that they have no time, how much time they actually spend on certain things. And I won't even go in there because I don't want to make, you know, value judgments on how people spend their time. But I'm just saying, you need to look really closely at what you're spending time on, and recognize that everybody has the same amount of time. You know, people say to me all the time, how do you do everything you do? It's like, well, maybe it's because I choose not to do certain things, and I therefore free up my time, because it's not like I have any more time than anybody else. I just use my time differently. And so recognize that you have the ability to make choices with your time so that you can use your time differently. But you could potentially have time blocks, and those are just as bad as money blocks. And that is this feeling like, and look at your words. You know, are you always saying to yourself, oh, I've got no time for that. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm blah, blah. You're actually sending messages to your subconscious to basically cut out the valuable time that you have, right? You're basically giving yourself messages to waste time, to abuse time, to be constantly on this cycle of busyness. And you know, you could actually be self-sabotaging in the area of time as much as you self-sabotage in other areas. So just take a look at that. Okay, this is a really big one. Maybe I'm just not enough. This is something that requires a pause, because as you look at your business and as you look at your heart, inevitably at some point you get this message coming up to you. You know, that you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not like so-and-so, you're not like so-and-so. And if you could only be like that person, well, then you could be successful, right? And this is a really deep one, and it hits at a really, really deep level. And what you need to know is that you're in good company, you're not alone. In fact, as I talk to like all the most senior leaders of my business, for the most part, they all feel at some level that way. They all feel like, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough for my team. Maybe I'm not a good enough mother. Maybe I'm not good enough as a leader. And we all have this kind of plague that runs through our mind, thinking, kind of criticizing and cutting down who we are at our very core. So you need to know that you're not alone in this, but you need to also know that you are enough. That, you know, everything that you are designed to do, you have already been given what you need to do it. And I think for this, the picture that comes to my mind is The Wizard of Oz. I love the story. I just finished reading the book to my son, and then we watched the movie, The Wizard of Oz. And what always stood out to me about Dorothy is that she was on this search for the way home. And, you know, she went through all these different extents, and she did a lot of good along the way. But the reality is, at the end of the day, I know Glinda the Good Witch comes up and says, you've actually had the ability all along. All you have to do is just click your heels together and say that there's no place like home. And so she was already enough. She already had everything that she needed. She just needed to go on a journey to find it, to find out, right? And along the way, she found out some pretty cool things about herself, that she is kind of brave and that she can do some pretty awesome stuff. And it's okay if you're going on a journey, as long as the end of the journey gets you to the conclusion that you already have what you need, that you are already enough, and that you're good enough. And so if you want to succeed, you can. There's the only thing that will stop you from succeeding is your choices and your beliefs about who you are and what you're capable of. Okay, so how can you get over this feeling like you're not enough? The first thing is stop focusing on yourself. Number one best way to get over negative thoughts and depression and, you know, this negativity about what you're capable of doing is to stop focusing on yourself. Start focusing on helping others. The more that you focus on others, the less you're worried about whether you're good enough, because you're just doing it, right? You're just doing this stuff to help other people. And that does send an amazing signal to your heart that you're doing good in this world, and that you're important, and that you are capable of helping others. So even if it's just simple ways that you can help every single day, do it. Find a way to help every day. And if you have a team of people, instead of focusing on, oh, maybe I'm not such a great leader, or maybe I'm not doing enough, just start helping your team, right? Just start speaking words of encouragement into them. So focus on helping others, and it will help you to feel better about who you are. Focus on what you're thankful for. So being grateful is hugely important. And it's easy to look at what we don't have. It's easy to look at what we're not, but how much more powerful is it to be grateful for what we do have, and to be thankful for who we are and our own unique gifts and abilities. So you have a mark that you're meant to make on this world, and nobody else can make it but you. But you can't be focusing on what you're not. You have to be focusing on what you are, and rejoicing in the beauty that is you. And then watch your thoughts. We've talked a little bit about this all the way through today's talk. But this goes back to Caroline Leaf, who's the lady that's pictured here. And I love these words that she said, I can't is a decision. So anytime that you're saying, I can't do this, or I can't do that, you've actually already made a decision about that. And so just recognize that. Recognize that you could be actually giving instructions to yourself to not succeed. And so the best way to kind of get a grip on your thoughts is to look at what your words are. So it's the easiest way to kind of uncover some of your unhelpful thinking patterns is to look at what you're saying. So are you saying things like, you know, I'm always this, or I'm never this, or this never happens to me, or this always happens to me? Well, those, I always say, always and never statements are always wrong and never true. So we want to be careful what we're saying about ourselves and to ourselves, and be careful about what we're thinking about. Inevitably, if we have a behavior, a pattern in our lives, it's because we've created it by how we're thinking. So I would recommend, from this perspective, to get Caroline Leaf's book. It's the one on the left there, called Switch on Your Brain. And really, really powerful for helping you to get a hold of what's going on in your head and turning it around. She's got a 21-day brain detox, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then also How Successful People Think by John Maxwell is another great book. So change your thinking, change your life. There's another one that I don't have here, but it's by Patricia King, and it's called Color My World. I think it's called Color Your World. And basically it's again about the whole idea of changing how you think. And that will change what your destiny is, what your future is. Okay, so I think we're done here. I've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to see if I can switch over to actually see you on Facebook, and then I'm going to try to answer any questions that come up, because we have about another 10 minutes. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to do that. But I just have to get into the group to see your questions, because I don't have any other way of interacting with you. So give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I can now see your questions. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, put it directly into the group, and I will be able to see that there. Okay, so this is your chance to, somebody has a question here. What do you mean to find someone else to build with? Jose, I'm not understanding the question. You say, what do you mean to find someone else to build with? Is that the right word? Are you saying, what do you need to find someone else to build with? Just if you can clarify that, I'd appreciate it. So yeah, so anyway, if you did have questions, feel free to write them there. I don't see any right now. Let me just kind of comment on the rest of this month while we're waiting. And that is that for the rest of the days this week, you'll see like a short video come out. But next week, we're going to be talking about scheduling for success. So we are going to be talking about effective time management. So that whole concept of I don't have time, hopefully the tips that you're going to get next week will be helpful for that. Then the week after that, we're going to be talking about mastering the art of sales. So we all want to be amazing salespeople. And yes, you do sell. I don't care whether you sell a product or whether you sell a service, you're always selling. Even if you're a pastor, you're selling in a way, because you're selling people on you as a person. You want people to understand that you are trustworthy. And then the mindset makeover is the last week of the month, and we're going to talk about shifting limiting beliefs. So a little bit more work specifically in that area of the belief expectation cycle. How do we shift those beliefs? Because we said that we need to, but we didn't necessarily say how. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the month. All right, so I've really enjoyed being able to connect with you, and I don't see any comments that are, can you give a list of super good books to change your mindset? I did. I'm not sure if that list was not enough, if you're looking for more, but basically what I had mentioned was Caroline Leaf's Switch on Your Brain. The second thing is the one by John Maxwell, which is How Successful People Think. I mentioned the one by Patricia King, Color My World, or Color Your World. Another really great one in terms of understanding the power of what you say about yourself is The Power of I Am. I think it is by, I forget his name. Somebody knows, they can write it down. Let me just look it up quickly. I always know these. I obviously need some Intune on my on the back of my neck today, because I'm a little foggy brained. So Joel Osteen, that's what it is. The Power of I Am. I think it's called The Power of I Am by Joel Osteen. He's that book. You know, to be honest, I find the book a little repetitive, because he kind of says the same thing over and over again. But I really appreciate the message, and sometimes you kind of need to hear the same thing over and over again. So that's a really great one to listen in audio, I think. So Jose is saying, what do you mean when you said regarding to find someone else? Was it to mentor you? Gosh, I really wish I could just put you on audio so I understand. So when you find someone else, regarding to find someone else, was it to mentor you? Gosh, I'm so sorry, Jose. I'm not understanding what you're asking. I feel so silly. If anybody else understands what she's asking and remembers what I said, because probably the part of the problem is that I don't remember what I said. If I knew what I said, maybe it would be more clear to me. But where did I post the list? I didn't actually post the list, but what I can do is I can put it in the actual comments that are attached to this video afterwards. I can write down the names of the books. So Caroline Leaf, yes, Switch on Your Brain, How Successful People Think, Thank You by John Maxwell, The Power of I Am by Joel Osteen, perfect. Was when you were talking about moving to a new builder. Talking about moving a new builder, I still don't remember. This is so awful. I was talking about moving a new builder. Moving in a mindset to becoming a builder. Oh yeah, and Barani is saying how to get over yourself. And
how do I get over myself and listening to others? Oh, actually, I thought you were talking about a book. There's actually a book that's called Get Over Yourself or something like that. That's actually a good book just to teach you about how to get over yourself. Okay, so to help people to shift, and I think this is what you're saying, and if it's not, then let me know, and I'm happy to kind of rework the answer. But to get people to shift from the mindset of being a babysitter to being a mom, or in other words, into builder mindset, it really has to come from within them, right? So what I know needs to happen is that a switch needs to go off inside of their head. And I've seen it happen across my team. People who are in employee mindset for the longest time suddenly are like, oh, wait a minute, I'm a mama. I got to take responsibility for this team, and I have to start doing this. And I see this mindset shift happen. But the more clear of a discussion that you can have from the beginning, saying, because here's what happens. Oftentimes we're so desperate for people to join us in the business that we say, oh, this is so great. Look at how much money you can make. And we have all these great programs, and all you have to do is this. And we almost make it easy for them. Or I really feel like our sale for the business should be, this is the most amazing opportunity you're ever going to have, but it is going to require work. And I just had a discussion with somebody who wants to build this business, and it was exactly like this. I laid it on the line. Like, it is hard work. I'm going to tell you, the biggest thing that you're going to have to overcome is yourself. And if you can get a hold of what's happening in here, you can succeed, but it's hard work. But it's encouraging to me because I can see that you're already on this journey. And then I speak words of life and encouragement into them about why I believe that they can do this journey. But you never sell it short. You never kind of say, oh, just join me. And you just do a few workshops, you enroll a few people, you get 3 people on your front line, and then you're all good, right? You never do that. You help them to understand that this is hard work. So did that answer your question, Jose? Is that helpful? You understood that if a person you are under isn't encouraging, etc. Oh, no. We never want to change to a different group, because the reality is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're able to succeed no matter what comes at you. And I mentioned to you that if your success is dependent upon 1 or 2 people underneath you to grow this business or to do a certain thing or to have a certain motivation, then you've lost it. But it's just as true as if you feel like your success is dependent on the person above you, that it's somehow their job to mentor you, that it's somehow their job. I mean, yeah, technically it's their job. They're benefiting from you. They should. But I'm definitely not going to let my success be dependent upon whether I'm getting great mentorship. All right, I can't do that. In fact, some of the most amazing leaders within doTERRA, when you interview them across the board, they all did not have great mentorship. They all kind of just took the bull by the horns and ran through it, sometimes even despite negative mentorship from their upline. So sometimes we just have to, not sometimes, all of the time, we have to take responsibility for this business. The great news is you can always grow yourself. The great news is that this kind of forum that I created is so that you can get mentorship no matter where you are and what business you're in, right? There's lots of programs like that. So just make use of whatever it is that you have available. Hi, Jennifer. And hi, Jerlane. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you, but anyway, hopefully that answers your questions. And this, to me, this is the most encouraging thing, the fact that we can continue to grow and we can continue to expand ourselves and expand our reach. And it's not dependent upon one person's lack of action or actions. That is, to me, encouragement and hope. Because otherwise it's slavery a little bit, because now we're dependent upon somebody else. And it's not that we don't benefit from other people. We definitely want to work together as a team. We want to, move together. I love the direct sales environment because it does bring you together and helps you to link arms with other people. But all I'm saying is, to me, it's so encouraging that our success isn't dependent upon what somebody else thinks about us or believes about us. Because in the working world, honestly, I always felt like the things that I was most good at were not valued and did not reflect in my pay. I had a great pay. I was always, on the higher end of the pay scale, which I was grateful for. But reality is that a lot of the stuff that I did in my job was the soft skills kind of stuff, which were absolutely critical, but which got no value the firm's perspective. Well, now I determine my value, right? Nobody else determines my value. I determine my value. And if I want to work harder and I want to increase my pay, I can. And to me, that's encouragement and that's strength and that's empowerment. So anyway, thank you so much, guys, for joining with me today. If you have more questions, I'll check back later on today, but have a beautiful day. If you're in Eastern Canada, where we're getting this beautiful sunshine, enjoy it. Get outside and get some sunshine, and it will do good for your mindset. And just remember, you're amazing. Bye for now.